Welcome to Dementia Resilience with Jill Lorenz, a candid conversation as we learn about dementia, Alzheimer's, and its effects on the people we love. Jill's years of dedication and experience help you adapt, recover, overcome obstacles, and find a positive outcome. It's time for Dementia Resilience with Jill Lorenz.
Glad to be here with all of our cruising listeners today. It's a beautiful Sunday. Hey, the goal of this new show is to educate and support our listeners who are living with Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. In the upcoming weeks, I've got some great guests who are scheduled to come and talk with us. They're experts in the field related to dementia and issues surrounding elderly folks, and we all need that if we've got loved ones who are over the age of 65. It happens to us all at one point or another. Next week's going to be a live show with one of those guests, and you'll have the opportunity to call in with questions. So we're super excited about that. Today, the show is going to be about my story with Alzheimer's. I think it's important as your host that you learn a little bit about me. So I think what would be fun is for me to share my background, my experience with you as I lead us down this journey of the Alzheimer's path, and start by telling you about how I was introduced to Alzheimer's type dementia along the way, and guide you to helpful information throughout today. So as I share my story, I'm going to introduce resources that I used along the way, some that I think will be helpful to you. We're going to talk about the stages of Alzheimer's, mild cognitive impairment, early stage, mid stage, late stage, and what you can do to stay ahead of the disease. And I really hope you find this helpful. So let's start with my mom. Mama's name was Dolores. Her friends called her Dee. She was born and raised on a corn and soybean farm in central Illinois, one of 10 kids. She married my dad in 1952 and raised 6 of us kids, and along the way pulled in a few strays and eventually adopted my little brother Norm. She was a housewife for many years, and then after she raised all of her kids, she got out and started working, and she worked in an office supply store. I told you about that in my last show. She was always our biggest cheerleader. She had loads of friends, never met a stranger. She adored her family. She enjoyed all of her 12 grandkids. She liked to bake. She wasn't necessarily a good cook, but she was a good baker and a really kind and thoughtful person. In the early 90s, I would call my mom just to say hi and have some kind of strange conversations with her. It seemed like everything ended in a question, no matter what it was. I'd say, "Hi, Mama, how are you?" And she'd say, "Huh? Who is this?" I say, "It's your daughter, Jill." "Who?" "Your daughter, Jill, Mom, your youngest daughter." "Oh, how are you?" But she never seemed to be clear on who I was. And my sisters had a little habit of making excuses for her. "Oh, she's tired. She's not listening. You called her during her favorite show," things like that. But I just kind of figured that my mom had good coping skills, and that's how she got through using familiar phrases and so on and so forth to hide the memory loss I thought she was having. She was still working at a local hospital in the gift shop at that time and driving herself back and forth to work, but I could see those signs. In 1998, my mom and my dear Uncle Charles, 84 years old, World War II vet, God bless him, they came out from Illinois on a road trip to visit, and my uncle had some heart issues and had to stay at Porter Hospital overnight. And the next morning, I got up and was making my mom some breakfast, and she asked if I got a paper. I said, "Yeah, why, Mom, I'll have my dog, Jordy Bear, go out and get the paper for you and bring it back in." And so we did that, made a big production over it, gave the dog a bone, patted her on the head. My mom sat down, started to read it and drink her coffee and eat her breakfast, and she looked up at me and said, "Honey, you get the paper?" My worst fear was realized. I know some of you listeners have had that problem too. You know, you think these things are going on, but now it's right there staring you in the face. Well, it got a little bit worse. We went down to pick up my uncle from the hospital, and he was going to get sprung, so he went in the bathroom to get dressed, and my mom was sitting in his room, and I walked across the hall to the nurse's station to find out how to care for him when we got him back home. When I went back into the room, my mom was gone. My mom, little country bumpkin, all 5 feet tall, gray hair of her, was going to be lost in Denver on Downing Street. And I was scared to death. We launched into having the security look for her, and a few minutes later we found her 3 floors down in the stairwell, and she was crying like a little girl, and she said, "Honey, I don't know what happened. I went to go to the bathroom, and the next thing I know, I was lost." And I just hugged her and I said, "Mama, we're going to find out what's wrong with you." So the first thing I did was I took her down to the Alzheimer's Association, and we had a care consultation with 2 ladies named Cheryl. They told me I better get her finances in order, find out if she's got insurance. These are things we need to do, and I'm going to expand on that a little bit in my tip of the day later. But did she have insurance coverage? We needed to get a doctor appointment for her and have a mini mental exam for her. And what is that? We've heard of that before, right? We go in and get a mini mental on somebody, and they ask questions like, "What's your name? Where do you live? Do you know where you are right now?" I'm going to give you 3 questions, and you repeat them back to me in a minute. And then they'll ask you to count backwards from 100. And then they'll ask you those 3 words that they gave you a minute ago and said they were going to ask you to remember. And you get a score on that. It's weighted. The top score is 30. And if you get anything below a 23, which my mom got a 21, that's what they call mild cognitive impairment. Welcome to the world of Alzheimer's. Here we go. They suggested that I call the Alzheimer's helpline if I had any questions and maybe join a support group. So my mom was 67 at the time, and we'd been having symptoms for several years. We kind of knew it because my sister had sent out a touchy-feely questionnaire about 9 years earlier asking, "What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food?" All that kind of stuff. And question number 8 was, "What's your biggest regret?" And my mom had marked her memory loss was her answer for that. So when you get the disease before age 65, we call that younger or early onset. So what do? At that point, I had to jump into action. I started reading every book I could get my hands on. I was checking them out at first from the library and the Alzheimer's Association, and then I read so many. In later years, the association asked me to check all these books for their efficacy and call new authors and that wanted to sell their books at the association. And I thought that was kind of fun. I joined a support group. I don't know if you know this, folks, but there are 90 support groups statewide that you can go and pour your heart out and get some advice from people. So I think that's a good thing to do, and I facilitated those for the next 6 years. I also took a 32-hour training class so I could work on the helpline. I spoke to thousands and thousands of people that had the disease and their family and friends that were dealing with it, and I did that for the next 7 years. I have a lot of information about how you can get on that helpline on my website. You can reach my website by looking at the Cruisin' 1430 AM website and scroll down to the host, follow all the way down to Dementia Resilience with Jill Lorenz, and we'll be happy to give you more information at that location. Or you can go on www.summitresiliencetraining.com or just listen to some of my tape shows or live shows on the podcast that the engineers put on there for me every day. So it'll be kind of exciting to work with you over all of this. And in the next segment, when we come back after the break, I'm going to talk to you about what I did after that. So now I've got a support group. Now I'm learning all about the helpline. I'm helping people that way. But what did I do next? We're going to listen to a word from our sponsor, Bellevue Heights Specialty Care Center, and I'll see you back here in just a few minutes.
You're listening to Dementia Resilience with Jill Lorenz and our sponsor, Bellevue Heights Alzheimer's Special Care Center, as we help shed light on dementia and Alzheimer's. Now back to the show. Here's Jill Lorenz.
Okay, we're back. I'm so glad you got to listen to some good words from our friends at Bellevue Heights, our lovely sponsor. And now we're going to launch back into my story with my mama. So at this point now, it's early 2000. I've decided to take a class. The Savvy Caregiver class was built by Ken Hepburn, a doctor at Mayo Clinic. And I took that class as an inaugural participant. I was really enthralled with that 12-hour class and thought it was good information for families about how to live with this disease and how to care for yourself and learning about the stages like we're doing today. And so I became an instructor and I did that for the next 7 years. This gave me the opportunity to share that information with my family. And of course, you can imagine because you're getting to know me now, that became their Christmas presents every year. I sent them books, I sent them videos. And so, for all you people who live in a different state than your loved one, and you think, well, there's nothing I can really do, I'm too far away, you can do what I did. I became my family's resource information officer. And I thought that was just a really good way to make sure that I stayed involved and I got my family members involved with the care we were going to provide for my mom. So now my mom's in early stage. Oh my goodness. She started exhibiting more serious symptoms. Her conversations and thought processes started to get random. Pieces of a puzzle were missing all the time. She was getting lost on her drive home from work. She had errors in balancing her checkbook. Her finances were all messed up. She was giving money away to every person that called that tried to scam her. This happens to a lot of us. I think 9 out of 10 people find out when their loved one has early stage that they've got money issues and were giving away money that they shouldn't have been. So she was also kind of insensitive to family members. She'd say something unkind to my niece about her weight, or if my brother said something to her that wasn't nice, she would say to him, I don't even know why I had you, things like that. No, mama, don't talk like that. We don't want her to act like that. So, what do we see in the early stage? Some of the common difficulties are coming up with the right word or remembering people's names. They're having difficulty performing tasks at work. They can't learn new functions or new material that they have to keep going with their work. They lose or misplace objects. They'll hide things because they're afraid somebody's going to take them, or they just simply can't find them. It's not because they're unorganized. It's the early stage, and planning and organizing goes right out the window. So about 5 years after my mom's diagnosis, we had the dreaded talk about not allowing her to drive anymore for her own safety and others. Folks, I promise you, we're going to dedicate an entire show to how to work on taking the driver's license away, taking the car away. Who's going to be the bad guy and say it? The doctor, the state? Are you going to have a driving simulation to do it? We're going to talk about things like that because I know that's information you need. So anyway, back to our story. Starting to have issues at work. Her boss was noticing that she wasn't being able to perform tasks or learn new things or manage the cash register. She started forgetting words. We call that aphasia. Aphasia. I'll say that again. APHASIA. It's a big issue. It's when they can't find the word. It's what was I trying to say? Well, I'm going to tell you. Don't be afraid to supply that word to somebody. You're not making it tougher. It's never going to come back to them. That's part of this disease. So help them out. Finish the sentence for them. Give them the word they're looking for. At this point, my sisters and brothers all started worrying about, am I going to be next? Uh-oh, does this run in the family? How can we know? What research is going on? So at that point, I got involved with the organization called AWARE. It's the Alzheimer's Women's Alliance for Research and Education. It was run by a lovely woman in our Denver community that a lot of you might know, Helen Ginsberg. I joined that group and I got on the program committee. And at that point, I had asked a researcher that was in town at the Alzheimer's Association to come and talk to our group. Well, it turns out this lady, Joanne, was from Washington University at St. Louis, and she was looking for people to join a family study that they could follow over years and years and years. Turns out my family is only 2 hours away from there, so I called them and asked them if they might want to be a part of this study. Then we could be part of the solution instead of just part of the problem, because 6 people in my family had it, my mama, her dad's sister, and 2 of my mom's siblings. It's pretty scary stuff when other people in your family start getting it. So I asked my siblings if they wanted to join this research study. the familial study. That's what they call it. And they said yes. And now we have probably 150 people in our families nationwide that are part of this study, and they're following our lives as we move through them to see if we're going to develop this disease. So my mom went to Washington University at St. Louis. She was evaluated as being now in the mid stage. And one of the subjects that came up was, would she be willing to donate her brain to science? I was amazed when my mom from a little town in Illinois said she would do that to try to help people find a cure. And I was so proud of her, so proud of her. And that's not something you can easily do. You can't just donate your brain to science. It would cost you $10,000, $20,000 if you're not part of a study. So that's something people should know. I've had one of my clients at Summit Resilience Training ask me about donating her mom's brain to science and couldn't understand why it was costing in the tens of thousands. So again, that might be something we talk about on a further show. But at any rate, being part of a study, my mom we had to do some additional paperwork, continued evaluations, PET scans, spinal tap, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to kid you, mid stage is heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. All you people out there listening to this show know that when somebody has to stop working, they lose their independence. It's a trial and tribulation. So my mom ended up coming out to stay with me for a while. And one of the hardest things we ever had to deal with was when I got her home from the airport, she came into my house. I'm trying to make her comfortable. And she looked at me like she was 5 years old. She said, "Honey, do I have a room here?" Oh man, pull those heartstrings out, right? I mean, that just tugged at my heart. And now I had to understand what mid stage was. And what the symptoms you will see would be forgetfulness of events. Maybe they forget their own personal history. They feel moody or withdrawn, especially in social situations, or if they feel mentally challenged. Unable to recall their own address or telephone number. She didn't even know where she graduated from high school. She had confusion about what day it was or what time it was, spatial issues. She needed help choosing proper clothing. She had an increased risk of wandering, and she became lost a lot. She'd walk out the front door, go for a walk, and I couldn't find her. Personality changes, things like that. So she would have compulsive behavior, rapid fire questions, and hand wringing. We're going to go to a break pretty soon, but I wanted to just remind you, if you need more information about Summit Resilience Training, please go to my website, www.summitresiliencetraining.com, or by all means, look at the Cruisin' 1430 AM website under Host, Dementia Resilience with Jill Lawrence, and you'll find more information about what we're going to cover on our show in upcoming weeks.
You're listening to Dementia Resilience with Jill Lorenz and our sponsor, Bellevue Heights Alzheimer's Special Care Center, as we help shed light on dementia and Alzheimer's. Now back to the show. Here's Jill Lorenz.
Welcome back. Glad you heard a few good words from our sponsor. Please stop by and visit Bellevue Heights sometime. I think you'll enjoy that community and what they're doing over there. But right now, we're going to get back to my story with my mama and her dementia and how I learned about Alzheimer's. So, a few years earlier, I had joined the volunteer committee to help organize the Education Symposium. It's a wonderful event that happens every October in Denver. Everybody should come. If you live in the state of Colorado, come to this event. This year, it's going to be on October 30th at the Hyatt off of South Syracuse. It's a terrific event. It's all day long. You can go to 18 breakout sessions. You can learn everything you want to learn. If you want to learn about what's new and great with research, you can do that. If you want to learn alternative therapies, maybe aromatherapy or massage therapy or music therapy, you can do that. You can listen to keynote speakers and things like that. It's just a great event. They have good prices for family members. It's where professionals and family come together to talk about Alzheimer's and what we're going to do with this disease and how we're going to move through positively. Resilience, that's what we're always talking about. So you can listen to 18 breakout sessions, and over the years, I've been a speaker myself at that, and I really think it's a good event. I think you'd like to go. So at any rate, moving on with my story, At this point, the Alzheimer's Association asked me to join the staff. I was hired to manage the Walk to End Alzheimer's, and if any of you think that my voice is familiar, I've done commercials on 9 News. I have done promos for it, and I probably sent you 150 emails a week for the next 5 years until 2015. So I probably met a lot of you viewers out there. I had about 10,000 people come every year. We got the Broncos involved. We appreciate the Denver Broncos and Annabelle Bolin and her family for getting involved with this cause and being so open about Mr. B and his disease and learning a lot. So over the years while I was there, I used to teach out in the community to care communities and corporations, the 10 warning signs and the basics of Alzheimer's, and just trying to spread education and get people to give money so we could contribute to research. I continued taking helpline calls and teaching classes. My last official act at the association was one of the best things I ever did. I got Glenn Campbell's wife, Kim, and her daughter Ashley to come and be the closing speakers and performers at the education symposium. And it was just amazing that that family shared everything they shared about his journey across the United States on his last concert tour and the movie that they had and the song he put out. I won't miss you. Really poignant song. So I think good stuff, and I'm proud to be a part of that. I decided at that point to go back to school and get my certificates in basic and dementia and advanced care and dementia-related behavior, activities of daily living, and what might be important to some of you, end of life. I wanted to know everything I could so I could stay ahead of the disease and help my mom. At this point, she's moving into late stage, and we had to make a tough decision about moving her into a care community. Some of you are facing that now. If you're not, you might face it at some time. And those are decisions that are tough to make. Do you need a locked unit? Do you need an unlocked unit? What kind of activities do they have? You have to look these places up. You have to go and investigate them, evaluate them, make sure the kind of care that they're going to give your loved one is what you're looking for. And there are ways I can help you with that. So please, again, if you need more information on that, look at my website, summitresiliencetraining.com, or give me a call, 303-999-1961. I'd love to help you with that. But some of the reasons you have to do that are wandering issues, safety issues in the home. My mom was setting the stove on fire. She got lost walking around the neighborhood. She had gotten lost in her car, in cornfields, and police had to find her and things like that. And we had tried home care. That worked pretty good for about 2 years, but she needed more help than we could give her. And so we had to make that tough decision. Some of you will too. And again, that's another subject we're going to cover on this show in upcoming weeks. How to look for that community. How do you make those decisions? What if you want home care instead? We'll talk about all that. So when my mom was moving into this late stage, I had to learn something called validation theory. It's how to work with a person who becomes nonverbal. I use music therapy with her. I'm a musician as well as a person that works with Alzheimer's. And so that was something I really wanted to do. And by the way, when we moved her into that first community, it didn't go well. We didn't make the best decision. Turned out that they had task-centered care versus person-centered care. So if she wanted to stay in her pajamas all day, she couldn't do it. She wanted to eat lunch instead of breakfast. She had to eat lunch and breakfast. I mean, they timed these things out, and that just wasn't the way she wanted to live. And that community didn't work for her. And then all of a sudden, if they pushed her into things, she showed behaviors. And a lot of you listeners are dealing with this right now. The community says, your loved one has a behavior and they're going to have to move. They can't stay here, or you got to medicate them. And that didn't work for me, didn't work for my mom, didn't work for my family. So we ended up having to find another place for her. And we found a wonderful little place in central Illinois called Monticello, a town of 600 people, little 9-bedroom hospital there with a nursing home attached to it and one lane that was their memory unit called the Halcyon unit. And I don't trust other people with my mom's care, so I flew back and I trained that staff. I wasn't going to have it any other way. They were going to try to work with her with person-centered care. She wasn't going to be there. It's as simple as that. But about late stage, let's talk about that for a minute. What does that look like? That's when they have trouble walking. Their gait gets a little changed as they're moving their steps. It's where families have to have serious discussions over end of life issues, like do not resuscitate. If my mom got the flu or pneumonia, were we going to cure it? Why? She's got late stage dementia. These are things we have to talk about, and families often don't agree. In 2 or 3 weeks from now, I'm going to have somebody come in who's a professional in this area and can talk to you about those type of legalities. And I think you're going to enjoy that show with Candace Worth, former former district attorney of Adams County. But she's going to come in and talk to us about things like that. Back to late stage, I had to coax my mom to eat. I could still sing to her, and she liked music. She responded to hugs and kisses. She became pretty nonverbal. She went about 2 years and didn't speak at all. At that point, nutrition is much less of an issue. Why are we trying to keep them healthy? We'd like them to get through this disease as quick as we can. That's what a lot of people think. That's what I thought. And we prepared her brain donation. We had to get ready for that. And that was a big moment for us, making sure we had it timed perfectly so that we got her on ice quickly after she died and so on and so forth. So that they could get her brain down and do an analysis on it. So at that point, my mom passed away. I started Summit Resilience Training. The Savvy class had ended at the Alzheimer's Association, and I felt a void, and so did many people in the community. So I rewrote a comprehensive lesson plan that it was, instead of now 12 hours, was 8 hours, and I based it on all my years of training and expertise. And I was offering resources not offered by the association. I could do in-home assessments and help families find the right type of care for their loved one. And I work with professionals who help and can supply additional services. I started training in-home care communities, law firms, law enforcement, and all of that. And I am a Leaders in Dementia Care certified trainer, and my company is a Leaders in Dementia Care certified company. And that's my story. So we're going to take a little break and come back soon with my tip for the day is find out about your loved one's finances and their insurance and what it covers. Look for us on our website and go to Cruisin' to find out more about the shows that we have on this station that are just informative and fabulous for you. And I'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Dementia Resilience with Jill Lorenz, sponsored by Bellevue Heights Alzheimer's Special Care Center. Visit her website at summitresiliencetraining.com to learn more, and join us next week as we learn more about dementia, Alzheimer's, and overcoming obstacles with a positive outcome. See you next time.